also meet about that and go over and ask more questions. But this is not a one-off meeting. During the construction period, you're going to have draw meetings at the very least. Have your property manager sit in that meeting. Again, that you'll hear things like how we doing on construction? Are we staying on schedule? When we're going to get units? Very important for management to know that, how they're going to be able to, pre-lease those apartments. When do we drop a trailer, or how do we start our marketing materials so we get those electronic applications come in, right? So all those things are very, very important. And it's a meeting. Normally, those draw meetings are about an hour. But you let your managers go to those meetings. Very, very important to do that. We have to understand that delivery schedule, that placed in service date, and turning on the credits. That's moving them in. That's the switch that these guys over here are looking for. When did you turn these credits on? And then we actually can start paying you those credits that you can in turn pay to the investors and to your syndicators. Track your deliverables. So again, when your units are supposed to come on, know what you're swinging at. So know when you're supposed to deliver them. Make sure everybody on your team knows, your construction team, your property management teams, they know when I'm supposed to get them. And then how are we doing? How are we doing compared to that? Track them, somehow publish it, pass it out to your team. Don't keep that under wraps and say, well, I'm the developer, I know all this stuff. I had one owner, we had these meetings and we were talking about deliverables and, hey, this is when we need units delivered. This is when we need these units to be turned on, occupancy wise. And he said, Mike, you're stating the obvious. Well, it's obvious to him because he's a developer. He's been working on this for 2 years, but it wasn't obvious to other people in the room. As a matter of fact, after the meeting, he said, Mike, I'm glad you said that because we didn't know. All right. So again, realize you may know everything, but does everybody in the room? And it's very, very important to have that trickle down effect. Have a plan to get back on track if you're behind. And we're going to go through an example. We've heard some great things already about how you guys are leasing up fantastically right now. The properties are staying on schedule. We had some challenges in the past. My example is from a property back in 2015, 2016, and we had delays, and the delay was weather related. We could not get out of the ground. I mean, again, we've had some severe rain here, but we were in Houston and every single day it rained. And we actually got an extension from our buddies here at TDHCA, but guess what? Our limited partner didn't give us an extension on our deliverables. So we were late and we had an adjuster, a negative adjuster. Again, another bad thing we'll talk about in a second. And also, if you don't know what an 8823 is that Ellen talked about, it's a bad thing. You don't want an 8823. For the most part, they're fixable. But again, if you're going to get one, you're going to get it from TDHCA, and you're going to have a time period to correct it. And they send that off to the IRS. And if you correct it in time, they also send an 8823 saying it was corrected. If it's uncorrected, then you get a problem with the IRS. But I'll leave that to Ellen down the road. But again, in case you didn't know. The goal, of course, is to deliver the units on time and also turn those credits on in time. And the last thing I'm going to cover here briefly is the development phase. It's again, we call this the risk period, but there's also a thing called a risk rating. And all of your syndicators and investors have a risk rating. The AHIC, the Affordable Housing Investment Council, puts a guideline out for the industry to use. And most syndicators will use that. And we're going to go over just that a little bit. The reason we're going to cover that is because that is how these properties are measured from a standpoint of how well you are doing compared to all those things that you promised. What did you promise to the state? What did you promise to your investors? And it measures that and it says, how you doing? And in this case, we'll review those. All right, I think I'm on to my next slide here. Okay, all right, samples. Okay, so this is a sample LPA. If you look in the, let's see if I can do this right. Okay, yeah, here's this first category over here. This is LI, this is low income units, and then this is market rates and then total. And so we have 120 total affordable units here, and we've got to deliver 10 here in May of 2015. So we're 10 years in, so we're still have some more years to go on the compliance period. But then you see 20, 30, 40, and so on. Those are accumulative. So basically this limited partnership agreement says, hey, we want you to deliver, place in service 10 units a month. And that also means turning the credits on. So again, I don't want to get into too much of Ellen's world here, but you definitely have to make sure that your CO date is timely. So if you have a CO, and for the most part, if you get a CO on the 1st, you can move people in that month and you can count those credits that month. But if you get a CO on the 2nd of the day, 2nd of the month, or 3rd or 4th, and you move somebody in that month, you can't count the credits till the next month. That's critical when you're delivering upfront here. So again, you want to make sure you're communicating to your construction team, getting a CO date that's on the 1st or before. Normally that week, the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, you want a CO then, because then anybody that moves in next month, I can count those credits. When you get a CO on the 2nd, your property management team is going to say thank you, and they're going to try to move everybody in they can. And then when it comes to the credit side, well, we can't count that 1st month because we didn't have those place and service units in for a full month. It's not 30 days; it's a full month. Is that still correct?
Yeah,
Right?
that's still that, and that's a good point, Mike. I think the other quirk there is that is applicable to new construction. And that's a really important rule for new construction. When you're doing acquisition rehab, it's a little bit different. You're looking, it's not necessarily that same full month rule, but it is also, it's definitely important to know when that CO date is.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Thank you for that. So again, we know we got to do 10 a month, and it looks like we get to 120 right about there. So that is April of 2016. We are supposed to have all of our units turned on, all the credits flowing, and that's a good thing. So again, that's our target. That's what our property management team is shooting for after our construction team has delivered. So I have an example here of what happens when things don't go really well. So this is again a sample delivery schedule and a lease-up tracker. Again, this is just what I used. You guys can do whatever you want, but what I did over here on this side, whoops, wrong button. What I did over here on this side was put in the original schedule. This schedule, of course, matched up with what our limited partnership agreement requirements were. So we said, hey, if we deliver this, my property management team can lease them up in time and we can hit that April of the 2026 deadline and we'll all be good and life will be happy across all of our teams, right? So, but over here on the left side, this is what actually happened. You see all these actuals and you can see the months here. Well, if you look right here, you see, so I think that's September. We were supposed to get our first units up here in May, right? Because that's when we were supposed to deliver units, right? Well, we were late. And the guy already told you the secret behind it. That was weather related. And we just could not get out of the ground. TDHCA did give us an extension that year. And so we were able to make sure we didn't lose all of our credits, but we were able to do that. But our limited partners agreement with our syndicator investor said, sorry about your luck. You made a promise to me and you got to deliver. And if you don't deliver, there are penalties. And we'll talk about that in a second. So again, you can see that we did a good job. You look at the leasing here. This is the leasing track here. The team did a great job once they could lease apartments and get those units occupied. So they did a good job getting it back on track as fast as they could. Things that could slow you down, weather related, absolutely. Probably the past few years, if you've been in the business, supply chain issues when we went through the pandemic, that was huge, right? I mean, I can't believe some of the properties we had where they were just waiting for, transformers or electrical circuits and things of that nature, and they couldn't get them, where they were looking over at different countries trying to get them to come in here so they could, get the electric turned on for these units. So again, that supply chain issue was another challenge. Subcontractors, if you're a general contractor or your general contractor has subcontractor issues, and that could slow you down if you're not managing that well. The other thing too is could be your local jurisdictions, getting those COs. That is sometimes a challenge. You may have a really challenging inspector that you did everything right, you're following all the codes, but they still want you to do one more thing, and until you get them right, you're not going to get that CO. And again, remember the CO drives our occupancy. So again, that is something we would definitely want to try and strive for. The next slide here, this is just an extension of what you just saw earlier, but this talks about basically the delivery of those credits. And up here at the top, again, this is, I know Ella's probably, stringent over there, but you have to do a true up to get the full adjusters and credit deliveries. But this is a sample. What I did is I basically said, hey, what is the credits worth? And I just took that and divided it by how many units, by how many months, and said, that's what my credits are, $975. And said, so every time I'm late for 1 unit month, I'm $975 behind. So again, it was a big eye opener for anybody that was looking at this. It was like, oh, this is real stuff. This is important, right? So again, it was an opportunity for me to communicate even to my developer, like, yeah, this is serious. We need to get on the track here. So again, using that schedule, you can see how we did. We were late. You can see the adjusters, what we were supposed to deliver, build up here where we didn't. And if you just come down here to where the bleeding stopped, it's $252,000 adjuster, a negative adjuster. So what does that mean? Okay, I got a negative adjuster. Well, so does that come out of the credits? No. You delivered the credits, you turned them on, and you're going to get your full credits, but you're just not going to get them in the timeline that you told your limited partner or your investor that you're going to get. So they're going to say, hey, general partner, you're going to have to make up that difference. You're going to have to make up that $252,000. They're going to like, okay, all right, how do I do that? Well, if you look at your sources and uses, there's a line item in there called developer fee. This is why most everybody's in this room, right? Is we want that developer fee. We do a lot of work. We do 2 years putting this deal together, maybe another 1.5 years to build it, and then we're leasing it up to try to get to a stabilization position. And now I have to not make all that money that I was planning to make. So what the first line of defense normally is they're going to say, hey, we're going to take it out of your developer fee. So general partner, you're not going to get that. We're going to take $252,000 and we're going to make that a deferred developer fee. And you get paid that. You don't lose it completely, but you get paid that out of cash flow over time. And so you're not going to have that for your final closing, and you're going to have to make it up. And so you have to pay all your bills. You have to pay your construction loan. You've got to do your final closing and get your mortgage in place. And so to do that, you absolutely have to make this adjustment or come out of pocket with $252,000. So yeah, I'll make that up, right? Normally your developer doesn't want to do that. So they'll defer that. So again, that's something you'll definitely want to make sure that we cover.
So we had a question brought to us before we even started, and I think touching on it now is helpful. And the question was, what are the most impactful decisions a developer can make early in a project to drive efficiency in both design and construction without compromising quality or long-term value? I think it kind of fits in this area. Consistency is a big thing. Learning from past mistakes is also a very helpful part of the process, not only from an ownership side, but a property management side, from a state side. So as a developer during construction, if you've historically built a property and you've got a cookie cutter product that you've used everywhere and it works great, but let's say on your cookie cutter property, you've got water heaters outside on a patio. Central Texas, once a year you got to worry about it, right? Around February 14th, we freeze for about 5 minutes. The whole city shuts down. It's great. Everybody gets a vacation day. However, if you build that same property in Amarillo, Texas, you're going to have a bigger problem because those water heaters are going to bust. They're going to flood. You're going to have much more issues because they're not as insulated as they would be if they're inside the unit. So being cautious in how you design and how you put things in the areas in which you're trying to develop is something to always keep in mind. And what Mike is mentioning with credit delivery, understanding that these are built-in safeguards, but sometimes you can't change the weather. If you get built and you're building in a town that doesn't have all of the right resources and you got to ship all that in, people get sick, things happen. There are some things you can't control, but working on the communication and things you can control are always, in my opinion, helpful for moving forward to minimize your risk cost.
Absolutely, Patricia, that's a good point. And to add to that in regards to that question, go towards your strengths. We're all chasing points when you're doing your application, and you go down the list and like, oh, I think I can do that, right? And you start checking these boxes and you've never done them before. Some are more complicated than others, and it's not just might be build a swimming pool, it might be doing things that you haven't done before, like the social services and so forth. So again, you stay within that box or learn what you have to do. Learn that execution before you actually check that box and then go, now what do I do? Anybody else? Any thoughts on that? All right, okay. All right, so I just wanted to touch on AHIC for a minute, just again, if you haven't been exposed to this, again, it's the Affordable Housing Investor Council. Your syndicators and investors follow some type of a risk rating